This podcast is a proud member of the Unidentified Network.
So now, ladies and gentlemen, live and in colour, it's Mr. Wayne Lovejuice.
The other day I produced a theory, had a chat with an interesting chappie who said that the YouTube algorithms really aren't that happy. If a channel only broadcasts once a week, so we decided we could Xtra. Whenever we've got a piece of news in our new book on the track Xtra. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John Downs and I'm the director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, and welcome to another episode of On the Track Xtra. Now, it may be Wednesday evening when you're watching this, or it may be some other time that it goes live on Wednesday evening, but when I'm recording this is actually early Sunday afternoon. And all sorts of pieces of news are coming in, so I thought I'd just give you a brief idea about what is happening as it happens. So, Sunday afternoon, so far, Miss Isabel is at a craft fair that has been a New Age Mind, Body and Spirit fair that has nobody there because of the flooding. And Miss Guinevere is just about to adopt a musk turtle, which I have suggested she needs to call Elon, because you couldn't really call anything that's musk anything else. And there has been some news coming in about big cats in Gloucestershire, which is somewhere that we have been interested in a long time. Now, a big cat is believed to have been on the prowl in a village in the Cotswalds. A picture has been taken of a roe deer which is believed to have been killed and eaten by a big cat. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I've just been joined by Lilith Tinkerbell, the CFZ cat, or one of the CFZ cats, but don't tell the others she's my favourite, and she always spends most of the winter sitting on me because it's warmer, I think. And if you hear rattling sounds throughout this show, that is Archie, the CFZ dog, shaking himself and rattling the name tag he has on his collar. I've just had another message from Miss Guinevere, face palming because she thought that my Elon Musk pun was absolutely terrible, and asking me for more information about musk turtles. Well, there's two species of them. They live in the northern United States and southern Canada, and I've always thought they were charming little turtles, and they are mildly unusual to be kept as pets, mainly because they smell peculiar, because they have musky glands, hence the name, and Liz just left. But I've always liked them, and it will be interesting to see if Miss Guinevere decides to add to the CFZ menagerie, because I no longer have a menagerie. I have 4 cats, a dog and a fish, and when I move back to my old house in Exeter I'll probably have a few more tanks of fish, but my days of keeping large numbers of animals for whatever reason are over. But that mantle seems to have been picked up by Miss Guinevere, who is encouraging her 2 young sons, Mohammed and Ibo. Mohammed, in particular, is fascinated by her burgeoning collection of animals, and I am doing my best to find him a zookeeper's hat akin to the one that Johnny Morris wore in Animal Magic. And talking of that, I was totally shocked last night when I said that to Miss Guinevere, and she had no idea who Johnny Morris was. Really the younger generation. Now, I subscribe to something called Google News Alerts, and so whenever any piece of news media in the English-speaking world comes up with a story about Bigfoot or big cats or Loch Ness Monster or half a dozen other keywords, it notifies me. And so every day I have to update the CFZ website. It's a reasonably complicated process, and I'll just walk through it because I think you might find it interesting. I log in to the back end of the CFZ website, which is built on a modified version of WordPress. And logging in is a bit complicated, but then when I do, I go to the area for posts, and I find the story about the deer in the Cotswalds being eaten probably by a big cat, and I copy it from the Google News Alert email in my emails, and I paste the story in. I open a new news story and I paste the story in, and then I get the headline for the story from the original one, because it is just the simplest way of doing it. I try not to change websites' headlines if I possibly can, because I am not claiming copyright on this story, neither in any way or form, and I think it is important that we acknowledge where the stories came from. Like I said, in this case it's from something called Gloucester Live, and we're just putting in here now to say that it is a big cat story and from Gloucester in the UK. We put in an excerpt from the story and something for the SEO, which I don't really understand, and then the story is visible on the CFZ website, or it should be anyway. And yes, it is there. That's lovely. And if you hear another set of strange noises coming up, Lilith is back. Lilith Tinkerbell is back, and she is purring loudly. Now, Frank Tunbridge in this story is quoted as saying, "Where there's something to eat, there's something to eat it." It's an old survival maxim which applies right across the natural world, and all wild creatures exist by this rule. On October the 24th, I received an email with photo attachments of a small roe deer that had been freshly killed. Much of it had been consumed in a manner relating to a large cat-like animal. Signs of the deer being killed by a big cat include bite marks to the throat, large amount of internal organs eaten, and the ribcage licked clean. The hair of the deer had been plucked away before the carnivore started its meal. The killing and consumption exhibited by signs of the roe deer are typical of a British big cat or a lynx, which there is a viable population throughout the UK. These cats, which are often described as similar to black leopards and pumas, are sighted on a regular basis all across the UK, and generally in rural areas, and often seen in semi-urban areas on the edge of towns, where small deer such as muntjac and roe exist. Basically, where the deer go, the cats will not be far behind. Successful carnivores generally need a large home range to keep their larders full, and these British big cats can cover many miles between dusk and dawn in their quest for food and mates. Like many wild species, they change their habitat accordingly between the summer months of plenty and the harsher times of winter. Every year as the weather changes to colder days and frosty nights. Generally from early November, I often receive reports of small deer carcasses, generally roe deer, killed and consumed in the manner of a large feathered. The one framed in this picture is no exception. The image was sent to me by a man working near a large estate in Painswick, Gloucestershire, and was quite fresh when he discovered it. Unfortunately, he was requested to move it, so no chance to set up a trail camera nearby in case the killer returned. As can be seen in many videos, a large majority of these elusive big cats are the result of hybridization, and in many cases are now successfully breeding true to type. After the 1976 Dangerous Animals Act, the Act caused owners to dump and release their large exotic pets across the UK due to the stringent restrictions imposed. Living on the edge of towns and villages has now become commonplace for many species of wildlife, herbivores and carnivores alike, who are attracted by the abundance of an easy meal created by the residents. They are scavenging, and this is often more successful than foraging and hunting for your next meal. Where there is something to eat, there is something to eat it. And the article concludes with contact details for Frank Tunbridge. I don't agree with him necessarily on all his points, particularly his claim that these animals are hybrids between different species. I don't think that it is very likely that if two different species of wild large cat met in the wild that they would cooperate and end up doing what mummy cats and daddy cats like to do. I think it's more likely they'd fight and try and eat each other. But I may be wrong, it has been known. And I would like to congratulate Frank Tunbridge for all the work he's done over the years, and I'm going to contact him soon and get an interview with him for the show. And now it is 20 minutes or so later, and I have just received a note from Daniel Perez, old friend of the show, that he's got a new book out. And would he like to chat to him? Would I like to chat to him about it? Well, of course I would. So I'm setting up an interview with him for next weekend, and I'm having to sort out the time zones because I'm completely and utterly rubbish about time zones. My mother always said that she thought that inside her head she always thought that the world was flat because she could never work out time zones or why the sun was in a different position if she was in the southern hemisphere. And she was quite a famous explorer. I'm just an old hippie with a silly hat. Now, a load more news stories have come in. Let's see what they are and if there's any use of any of them. Bigfoot. Somebody is putting out what looks like a pantomime. So it's a pantomime called a Bigfoot Christmas Special. All very interesting, but not really our thing. An article on Facebook in the Pacific Northwest. The legend of Bigfoot has transcended pop culture. Blah, blah, blah. No. I have a friend who's obsessed with the Loch Ness Monster. Is the Loch Ness Monster real? Don't know. Is the Loch Ness Monster real again? And 4 ancient animals that could explain the myth. Well, I think it's more likely to be the normal monkeys, the normal animals that explain the myth. I said monkeys because as I came in I got a message from Miss Gwynn saying that her children were being delightful little monkeys, which is fair enough. Now, Bigfoot Poetry Festival don't care. Poems from Tom Woodruff, well, that's very nice, but not anything to do. Law enforcement seeking 30-year-old man accused of Bigfoot pub shooting. Golly, again, all very exciting, but not really interesting as far as the CFZ website news pages are concerned. Do I believe the Loch Ness Monster exists? Yes. Wyman and the Wolves playing live in Bigfoot Lodge. Well, that's all very nice, but again, not relative. A podcast about the Loch Ness Monster. Again, the story of the guy shooting somebody in Bigfoot. Another podcast about the Loch Ness Monster. A podcast about Bigfoot. 40 random bits of trivia about the Loch Ness Monster. No, Loch Ness Monster, myth or reality on Animal Planet, I think it said. Hiking and volunteering with Eva Plantowski on the Bigfoot Trail. If the Loch Ness Monster is ever proven to be real, I'm throwing a huge party and I'm going to get drunk, well, so am I. Northern Iowa Wrestling, aiming for shelf-stocking season, featuring somebody called Bigfoot. That's always something that mildly amuses me, that there are at least 2 Mexican wrestlers called Bigfoot, and whenever they do anything, their exploits end up in my email inbox due to those lovely people at Google News Alerts. Here we have another Loch Ness Monster podcast. How did Nessie find out where Momo was hiding in Dandadan? Episode 8. Yes. 10 champions crowned? Yes, that's another thing about Bigfoot wrestler. Easter egg, Loch Ness Monster on OJ Apex Legends 2024. Well, I know Apex Legends is a video game because Louis, our producer, plays it. Chupacabra. The giant Chupacabra is back. Oh, that's in a video game again. Penguin found on Australian beach returns to sea. Well, I'm very glad for that. That was quite interesting that there was a Antarctic penguin turned up all the way far north in Australia. Bigfoot Cafe, where you can do breastfeeding. Yes. Look, 20 things every man wishes he could tell his 20-year-old self. Is the Loch Ness Monster real? Don't care. Bigfoot. Nope. Loch Ness Monster. This is about a roller coaster at Busch Gardens in a place called Williamsburg. This is selling t-shirts. This is selling t-shirts. Watch Finding Bigfoot Season 4. This is another podcast. HSO calls for service. I don't actually know what that means. Bigfoot sightings, Hulu in the Duplas. I have absolutely no idea what that means, and I'm too jaded to go and find out. But now I've done my emails and I've updated the websites. I've got to go on to something else that's incredibly jolly. Well, it's not jolly at all, in fact, but it needs to be done because we're coming up to the time when we're going to be publishing the next issue of Animals and Men. And I've got to continue writing my editorial for Animals and Men, which I started but I haven't finished. I'm not going to make you sit through all of it, but just to give you some idea of what's happening. I'm writing it on my iPad and I'm using the iPad dictation app thingamabob because my hands are so wobbly this time of the year with my advancing age and my advancing health problems, so I nearly always dictate. As my grandfather would have said, comma, no names, no pack drill. And so I am not going to go into any real details, comma, but recently somebody used their dissatisfaction with the way that I run things to try and overthrow my decision to make Miss Guinevere my successor, comma, with the implication that I should choose them instead, full stop. Well, I didn't, full stop. I won't, full stop. And I have every confidence in the way that Gwyn Palmer is operating things at the moment and the way that she will run things when I have stepped down. So, there, exclamation mark. And now I am checking and correcting the spelling mistakes. This program isn't 100% faithful, accurate, not faithful. And back in the old days when I used Dragon Naturally Speaking, that was actually probably better, but it's not as convenient as the inbuilt program on my iPad. So, life goes on. And now it's 3 days later and we've come to the end of the show. I want to make a confession. When I first started this, I thought that I'd be pushed to make a whole quarter of an hour show out of a whole afternoon's work doing CFZ stuff. In fact, I only got just under an hour's worth of CFZ stuff done before I filled up the show. So, if you liked that, I'll do it again sometime, because I'm always doing interesting things, and there's always interesting news coming in. And in the meantime, I'm going to be back on Saturday. What are we talking about on Saturday? Well, I'm not completely sure, but I think you're going to see what I think happened when John Keel's telephone calls were interrupted in the Mothman prophecies, and that is not a joke. Be seeing you.